I'm Max Richter, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 scores.
What do you think? There's a button, a red button. Yeah, honey. It's okay, baby. Yeah.
The Leftovers is all centered on this plot device of the departure.
Oh my God, just press it in with a pen or something. Oh, it's perfect. It'll start back up. Okay.
2% of the world's population disappear at the very beginning of the first season of The Leftovers.
Sam? Sam? Sam?
In a way, all of the storylines and plot and material of the show is a kind of aftershock from that event.
Sam?
With acoustic instruments, you have instruments which have sustained tones. The sounds start and it can continue at the same level until the player decides to finish the note. There are other instruments which have a decay built into them. The piano, harp, bells, instruments which are struck. I decided to make the score for The Leftovers mostly out of elements with this inevitable decay. The sound departs.
911, what's your emergency?
My son's missing. He was taken out, but I just wanted to check on him.
So this image of departure and disappearance is built into the DNA of the instrumentation. And then I set out to write whole different groups of material to look at different aspects of that story. There's a very simple kind of childlike piano piece called The Departure. There are various arrangements of that, slower, faster. There's a re-instrumentation of it when the action moves to Texas. You get a kind of pedal steel guitar version. So it sort of gets morphed by the context, but it remains the departure. I should maybe just mention the original first titles, the main titles. We had this extraordinary kind of Sistine Chapel sort of animation at the beginning, which is the Sistine Chapel, but when you look closely, there are people sort of murdering one another, all kinds of sort of rather gloomy, dark goings-on in that image. So it's a sort of antimatter Sistine Chapel. And the music for that is like a kind of supercharged, deliberately crazy harmonic language, and a very sort of brutalist orchestral arrangement. Henry May Long is a film by Randy Sharp from 2008. The story is a sort of Henry James type story, very personal, very inward, very emotional.
You can't disappear from yourself anymore.
These 2 characters, their friendship and misadventures and troubles.
Henry. Only from me.
It's really a beautiful, sensitive piece of filmmaking. And it was a pleasure to write the music for it. It's scored for a small string ensemble, piano, and lots of sort of bowed vibes and glass and electronics, that kind of thing. It starts with one main theme. You first hear in Ocean House Mirror on the strings. And then this is sort of transformed via different instrumentations, different contexts throughout. The other pole is a repeated piano material, which maybe reminds me a bit of the kind of piano writing in the Blue Notebooks. In a piece like Vladimir's Blues, you hear echoes of that in Henry May Long. So you've got these two strands, the string material, which is almost like the narrator's voice in the film. And then the more personal material, which is sort of piano-driven melodic writing. The third score I wanted to talk about is Waltz with Bashir. This is Ari Folman's extraordinary animated documentary from 2008. When I first was approached by Ari, it was a kind of an email out of the blue. And the email went, I've written this film, I've been listening to your music while writing it, can you score it please? And I did get quite a lot of mails like that. So I did kind of go, oh. But the next thing that happened was Ari sent me 30 seconds of animation. And it was stunning and unlike anything I'd ever seen. And then I immediately thought, well, I have to do this film. The more I got into it, the more I was convinced this was a completely new way of making cinema and a completely new way of telling a story. Very compelling material, the story of Ari's own experience, or maybe half-remembered or misremembered experience, surrounding the Sabra and Shatila massacre during the Lebanon War, and him sort of unearthing the personal and social and political consequences of that event. So for me, the central image in the story of Waltz with Bashir is to do with the reliability or unreliability of what we think we know. So the music attempts constantly to invoke a sense of uncertainty. And the main theme for Waltz with Bashir, this music is called The Haunted Ocean. And the ocean, I guess, is a sort of image of memory, a sort of ultimate state. And I think that's why Ari uses that image of these sort of young people coming out of this sort of unformed state. The music is built up of a number of different elements which promote a kind of instability. So it's things we recognize, but they are in some way not quite right. The first thing is that it's an asymmetrical time signature. It's not in 4 or 3, it's in 7. There is a grouping of 4, which feels familiar, but then there's this other half of the bar, which is sort of the wrong length. The other thing is that the harmonic language is deliberately upside down. The bass is not where it should be. So it sounds kind of right, but it also sounds kind of wrong. And then the other thing is there's a melodic part. And that melodic part is, again, using this idea of the suspensions. But these suspensions are being played backwards, according to how the harmony sort of makes us feel they should be being played. So that's the kind of architecture that makes the Haunted Ocean have its particular character.
ופתאום אני רואה יד קטנה, יד של ילד או ילדה, מבצבץ ככה מתוך הזה.